Welcome to Hibbert Health. Today I'd like to take on that subject, the ever-looming concern that we all have, and that's how are we going to get our children back to school? Are we actually going to send them back, or are they going to stay home? And I think we need to really take into consideration a lot of very important aspects of a child's health and welfare and the families, and exactly what is the school going to do to help safeguard our children and provide that education they need. And actually the education, whether they need to stay in school or whether they do need to stay at home and do virtual learning. These are all very important things to discuss together. And I have a very experienced educator, Ian Robinson. Thank you for joining me, Ian.
You're welcome.
He's going to be talking with you in just a moment. Ian's going to tell you about his experience. He's got several years of teaching in Europe, in France and England, and that was with co-ed secondary state schools. And then in Canada, he's been working with independent schools and prominent elementary schools. So he's really covered the whole range of age groups. And I'm very happy to introduce Ian Robinson. Thank you so much, Ian.
Good morning. A little bit more information about me. My wife and I, we have 3 grandchildren, 1 boy and 2 girls, ages 13, 15, and nearly 18, going into grade 8, grade 10, and we hope first year university. I'd like to briefly cover what the optimum kinds of educational experiences involve. What should a classroom have? It should have the ability to help mentally, physically, and emotionally. It should enable kids to be able to understand what teamwork is and what group work is. Schools need a community feel. The kids have to believe they belong there, they're at the right place. And they need a hugely wide exposure to a variety of different subjects, covering the areas of the academics, the arts, the athletics. They need to be approached in a variety of different ways. To pretend that a lecture system would work with young elementary students is ridiculous. And so they need a variety of approaches, including, of course, virtual. Friendships are created at school. Some of these friendships last their whole lives. And the developments of human situations, friend and foe, is also a very important part of the learning process. So on that framework, what kinds of practicalities are important? Student-student exchanges. Student-teacher exchanges. They must occur with the stimuli that keep them involved and interested, an ability to share experiences and participate with youngsters. Very, very important. And what happens? Character grows, leadership potential grows, success happens, and kids learn from that, and failure happens, and kids learn from that. And who benefits from schools being open? Everyone. Parents, teachers, students. The potential suffering from depression when kids are unable to be with their friends in a learning situation could be extremely dangerous. It is very important that they, again, as I said a moment ago, belong, feel accepted, feel that they're in the right place. Now, that can happen virtually, but it also needs to be able to happen in other ways, not just one way. We know that parents are not necessarily teachers, some are not. However, their job is to raise their kids. The fact that they are living with their children frequently, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, is putting a stress level on the kids and on the parents that is unacceptable. It's crucial that schools open up, and it's crucial that the potential for these youngsters increases with their participation not only in a family unit, but also in a school unit.
Thank you so much for that information. That's so important, and you're so right, and that's really the critical reason why we need to get our kids back to school. What research have you done recently as you look to the future of education that's been gathered over the last few months?
Well, it's interesting because a few months ago there was no commentary at all. Today, whether it's the radio, whether it's the television, whether it's IT, a variety of different channels, as you know, there's all kinds of commentary, and justifiably so, which is saying, what are we going to do? The honest truth is that here we are in the middle of July, people still don't know exactly what's going to happen. And as we approach August, those kinds of decisions are going to have to be made far more openly, and so that people can at least plan and prepare and think about how all of these problems are going to be approached. So there are some interesting things happening in the world that aren't in Canada necessarily.
Yes, I know you have contact in Cardiff, Wales. Please fill us in on the thinking in that country. And a lot of the European countries actually have a lot to show for us regarding managing the kids in school, because they've been going back to school and it's actually working out well. Would you like to enlighten us a little bit more about that?
Sure. The Welsh situation is really interesting because it's a small country. It's only 3.5 million people. It's part of the United Kingdom, as I'm sure you all know. And on the 9th of July, last week, the Education Minister, Kirsty Williams, announced that they were going to create 900 teaching posts as part of a £29 million, roughly $50 million support package to help students catch up when school reopens. There will be 600 newly qualified and supply teachers and 300 teaching assistants. All of these people will be on a 1-year guaranteed contract, and they will increase the number of people involved in education to such a degree that the class sizes are able to be reduced.
And I guess also to provide that virtual teaching that's necessary too, because it's all going to be part of the whole program.
Well, I think that's absolutely correct. And the virtual piece is the driving force behind so much of what's been happening over the past 6 months and the past 20 years, but the past 6 months in particular. And I think the important thing is to just listen to what happened in Wales last Monday, July the 13th. All schools in Wales reopen in September. Statement. We need that kind of information with the kind of definiteness which enables all of us to react appropriately and to prepare and to get our kids to prepare. And of course, the teachers. So she says, Education Minister Kirsty Williams says, and I'm quoting here, that schools are safe and secure. She also says that the balance of risks, and of course there is a risk, but the balance of risks allows for full-time school by September the 14th. That means that schools have to reopen between the 1st and the 14th of September. A great number of schools have been open during this whole crisis to support critical workers and vulnerable children. These schools never close. They've been open day after day after day for specific people.
Can I ask, when you talk about vulnerable children, are they talking about children that generally don't have access to the virtual world? Is that the larger percentage of vulnerable children they're talking about?
That's part of the vulnerability. I think also it's approaching children whose needs are maybe more than many.
Such as autism and
could be
children with educational challenges that absolutely need to have a teacher and be in contact with them.
Consistent teacher and consistent experiences to keep whatever growth can happen happening.
Yes.
Another point that Kirsty Williams made, I quote, she will be working with nurseries and child care groups over the summer to support the gradual move towards full operations. That is a must. It is so important. It enables kids to be involved outside the family. It enables parents to work. many of whom are obliged to do so. They have to make really tough choices. Is it my family or is it my employment? And under these circumstances, they get both. The scientific advisors to the Welsh government, and I'm quoting again, said, real-world observation of school opening in England and other countries has shown little transmission of coronavirus, particularly in children under 12 years old. That opens a door that is not only crucial, but it is also highly viable. And so expanding that a wee bit, moving on from Wales, there are a number of other European countries that have had schools fully open for some time with, I quote, no apparent ill effect. Denmark, Austria, Norway, Germany, 4 good examples, admittedly very different kinds of populations, 1 or 2 very small, and then Germany huge, 84 million people. And then outside Europe, New Zealand has led for months, and they continue to do so. Again, a small population. Taiwan has done incredibly well with a far larger population. But so what do we do? Well, schools must reopen. Programs must be available. Sorry, my papers are flying. Programs must be available. And a broad number of options must be available in terms of this is not just sitting at a desk, this is not just working on a computer, this is looking after the physical health, the emotional health, and the academic health.
So you support having sports in the school and some other various the arts, which I think is so important for growth and development of the brain and physically to express yourself.
Yeah.
So would you like to expand on that?
Sure. Just to talk about the arts for a second, it is clear that singing and wind instruments cannot be a part of the program. Tragic, but essential. It is clear that drama might well be another area that cannot be approached. I'm not sure about that. But the other arts, the visual arts or other expressive arts, are certainly available. In terms of physicality, shouldn't just be available, it should be a vital component of every youngster's program. And I have spoken with a couple of heads in the Toronto area who are explaining that by, as the board has suggested, cohorting and distancing, class size can be reduced, and as a consequence they have to increase the number of classrooms, which mean you get smaller areas, but you can use different areas as classrooms that previously weren't classrooms. Example, a dining room. No one will be eating in the dining room, they'll all be eating in their own classrooms. So you look at the size of a dining room and say, we can divide this into 3 different classroom areas. Absolutely true. No reason why it can't work. And the only other thing that I wanted to mention is that it is so important that physicality be a part of this program that I know certain schools are looking at 4 half-hour periods a day of being outside, getting some exercise, getting some fresh air, and it's going to make their learning so much better. Canada is number 21 when you look at the Worldometer COVID-19 data. Canada is the 21st worst country, and yet we have done really very well in many, many ways. Now is the time, however, to say, okay, we've done well, we've lost a lot too many people, we still have a high number of people who are ill. However, beyond that, we still need to look ahead. How are we going to turn the corner? Is it going to be purely, well, we're not sure, or well, here's option number 1, number 2, number 3, or are we actually going to be informed? No, we're going to take the jump. Look at these other countries. If they can do it, why can't we? And let's be honest, with education being a provincial responsibility, There's no reason why Ontario couldn't pursue its own route. British Columbia, maybe a totally different one. And PEI, maybe again, a completely different one. That's fine. Even the timing can be different. But now is the time to take the plunge. I think I'm done for the moment, but this has been really interesting.
Thank you, Ian. It's just been so thoughtful, everything that you've said, and it's so true. And if we can learn from these countries that have opened, what a difference it'll make to help us get ahead and use them as role models and take the best of what they've offered and bring it to the table to help our children get back to school, help the families cope better. And in the end, it does help the economy get going.
Absolutely.
Most importantly,
Absolutely.
of course, is to health and welfare of everybody around. And that's number one, and I know that everybody feels that way.
And as we know, if I can just add one comment, as we know, COVID-19 has been a disaster, no question. Terrible, terrible stuff. However, as with world wars, certain good elements come out of these situations. And the virtual movement is clearly a very strong example of that. And I just want to say that there are gains. We should be optimistic. We have to look to the future, and we cannot do it at the expense of our families, of our workplace, and of our children. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ian, for being here today. You've brought forward some very important aspects of what school means to us as a community, as a society, and individually, and as a family. And it's very important. I know there are a lot of aspects of this going back to school that are concerning everybody. And I hope to come forward with various topics regarding all those different concerns that we all have over the next little while. And I really appreciate you being here, Ian. I might call on you again very soon. Thank you. I certainly will come to you to ask your advice and bring forward more good information for everybody so we have some good foundations to know how and why and where we're going to go with our children over the next few months. And school, it's just around the corner. It's in September. So we really need to ramp up and figure this out together. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Hibbert Health, and it'll let you know when new videos come up that you may want to watch. Thank you very much.